Hello and welcome back to Guitars and Music Tech. Today we're going to be talking about distortion. What is it? How is it used? What are the differences between different distortions? First, let's talk about what is a distortion. Usually when you listen to music, especially the styles of blues, rock, heavy metal, the guitars are always distorted. And it started by a player who pushed his amplifier to the max. He pushed the button, turned it up to 10, and he likes the sound. And basically what he did, he kept pushing the volume up until the amplifier was not able to keep the sound clean anymore. And it started to clip. And when it started to clip, this was what basically distortion is. It's the clipping of the sound. It's like you're pushing it to the limit that there's no more. The top of the wave, imagine the wave is like when you throw a little rock in the pond. When you see it sideways, you can see the wave. And the top of the wave is not round anymore. When you push the amplifier to its limit, it starts to be cut. And the way it's cut is actually what makes the distortion. Guess who's that person is? I don't know. I think they told me it's Jimi Hendrix. I may be wrong. But he's one of the first people who used to turn his amplifier to the maximum and use it musically. Not only that, I also added a pedal before it and to boost it and give even more distortion. We're going to talk about that in a second. So distortion is basically you take a clean guitar sound that is stale, that is just like a regular acoustic guitar or classical sound. It sounds very clean. And then you keep pushing the volume until the amps cannot take it anymore. And those amps on the days, until today, they keep doing them, are tubes. And the tubes, when they distort and when they clip in a very musical way. The note, a regular note, when it's played, just a clean note, there's the fundamental tone pitch, which is what you hear. But there are overtones, harmonics to the note that are very, very low volume. So when you keep boosting the original sound so far, those harmonics start to be amplified and become part of the sound. So it becomes more beautiful. And in music, in rock, basically, when you play two notes together, they have to be in harmonic so that the overtones of those notes blend together. So you can, a power chord is basically two notes, a fifth apart, and you play them, and then you'll have a very, very rich chordal sound. You cannot really add a third. You could, but it's very critical to add it. If you add it, you might end up with a sound that is very mushy because of all the overtones that are clashing with each other. So when you keep it to two notes, it's perfect. And sometimes this is, if you ever wonder, after a while, after you put your guitar strings and you find that the guitar string just playing a single note but with distortion on, you find that it's not in tune. It sounds bad. It's because the string itself is not homogeneous anymore. Some part of it is vibrating in a different way, so the harmonics that you usually cannot hear, when you put the distortion, they are amplified and they clash because they are not the good harmonics anymore. The overtones that are coming out of the single string became bad. The pitch don't match. So that's why you need to change your strings more often if you're playing rock guitar and always have high gain and distortion on your guitar sound than if you're playing, let's say, jazz and you're just hearing basically the main note. But that's not really true because even jazz players, they have some overdrive. So let's talk about different types of distortion. Distortion is a general word. Basically, you're distorting the sound. So the clear sound of the guitar has been distorted. And by the way, it could be a keyboard, it could be a drum, it can be a voice, that you want to distort as effects. But for guitar is like you transfer this guitar from a benign, clean sound to a beast, and you need to learn how to play that. You have to tame it. It's like how to train your dragon. Basically, that's what it is. You have to really know how to play the guitar when it's plugged in with distortion. So let's talk about different types of distortion you might hear about. There's fuzz, there is overdrive, there's boosters, right? And there's distortion. And these types are all kind of dissimilar. The principle is the same, but they differ in the timbre, in the quality, how much they boost, how much they sustain. So we won't go into that, because if you go online and type distortion in a store, you'll find out that you're going to get endless pedals for distortion. So let's separate between having a pedal that distorts and an amplifier that is distorting. It's a similar thing too, but a little bit different. The amplifier is your amp with if it's tube amp or transistor amp or a modeling amp, they all distort. But the modeling, we talked about that in the previous episode. It's not the same thing. It's modeling the way it clips and all that. But the real amp, which is a tube amp or a standard solid state or transistor amp, they can distort, and they have different quality for them. And everything distorts, not only just the speaker also is going to be distorting. We also discussed that in the previous episode. So there's amp distortion, okay, and inside that distortion of the amp, there's also two phases. There's the preamp distortion, and there's the power amp distortion. Also, they contribute together to basically give you a good distorted, full, sustaining sound. And sometimes that's not enough, so you need a booster. So you put a pedal in front of the amp and you boost the volume even more to make that amp distort even more. Those pedals go from boosters, as I said, to distortion pedal, to overdrive. You're playing blues, you don't want to distort too much. You're not really playing heavy metal. You just want to have a little bit of a breakup and you want to push that amplifier. So you use an overdrive pedal. And they all have different quality of sound. One of the things that I've learned a little bit later in life was that if you use a fuzz pedal before your amp, like Jimi Hendrix used to do, and make sure that this fuzz pedal is unbuffered fuzz pedal, because what happens with unbuffered is it interacts with your guitar and with your cable. So it picks up whatever impedance is your guitar doing. That means your volume, your tone on the guitar will affect how much this fuzz pedal will produce fuzz. Let's put it as simple as that. And the cable that's running from your guitar to the fuzz pedal also will affect how that fuzz pedal will produce the fuzz. So in general, when you turn down the volume on a fuzz pedal, it will give you kind of like an overdriven sound, almost clean, but with a little bit of overdrive. You keep increasing the volume, it will keep distorting until it gets to become fuzzy. It will be fuzz. Some people don't like the fuzz, but listen to Jimi Hendrix and tell me if you don't like his sound, because he uses an unbuffered fuzz pedal before his Marshall amp that's turned up to the max. So and he used a coil cable that's I'm sure giving and smoothing and cutting the high top end of his guitar sound a little bit, and to have his specific sound. So there's many things that goes into a specific guitar sound that you hear recorded on tape. So you need to experiment with these. I used for many years to have the first pedal is a noise gate. So I put my noise gate, which is coming from Boss. All the Boss, by the way, all Boss pedals are buffered. And what is buffered? Basically, you have a little amplifier. At the minute the sound gets the pedal, you have a little amplifier, and it's a unity amplifier. That means it doesn't really amplify anything. It just gives it 1-to-1. So the volume that's going in is the same as the volume going up. So when you turn off the pedal, you still have to have the battery on, because this amplifier is unity amplifier. So we call buffer. And that diminishes and removes any effects of your pickups, volume, and tone and cable. It minimizes it to the point that it's not an issue. It's not a thing anymore. So when you use it on an unbuffered fuzz pedal, then you can see these things changes so drastically. And this is where you really tune in your sound with the volume of your guitar. I used to put the volume on 10 all the time, and I wonder, why do I have a volume on? Well, that's at the time. But when I've learned and I put one and I saw how it affects the sound, there's no going back. So modeling is now just starting to get this, and they do have it, but not to exactly like when it's in an analog world, right? So when you have your distortion on or your fuzz on and the amp is turned up or your modeler is turned up with the sound of distortion, your guitar becomes rigged. It's super sensitive. So your picking technique has to be very, very clean. Also, muting all other not used strings is a big thing to have a clean sound. So sometimes it sounds so simple when you listen to, let's say, AC/DC playing rock chords, power chords, right? No, it's whenever they stop the sound, they're actually muting all the strings and touching them to hold them. And they're using everything musically, being close to the amp, the way it sustains, the way you make the harmonics. You can squeeze the harmonics out with your pick and fingers, and you can hear that very clearly when you listen to ZZ Top, for example. They love to do that. They squeeze the notes out, and it's all harmonics. So it's a technique. It becomes a different animal. The guitar is not the same guitar. When you say I play rock or you say I play jazz, it's two different instruments basically, because the techniques are not the same. So I hope you enjoyed our episode today, and we'll see you next time. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.